officers protested it, Abu Ubaid was eager to cross and fight in a pitched battle, so he ordered his army to do that. Seeing this, Bahman repositioned his troops slightly to the north, allowing the Muslims to move across and form up.
Oh! They want the smoke. They want the smoke. They want the smoke. We are continuing where we left off.
Simultaneously, the political situation in the Caliphate had also changed, as Caliph Abu Bakr passed away in late August of that year.
If you haven't checked out my other early Muslim expansion episodes, go check it out and then come back to this one.
By Umar. The new caliph immediately started implementing administrational and military reforms, creating new administrative positions in the provinces and changing the formation of the army from the one created on the tribal principle to a more centralized one. Immediately after his ascension, Umar sent a letter to the army relieving Khalid of his post and appointing Abu Ubaidah in his place. We don't know if this was part of the reforms, or as some sources claim, it happened due to the previous animosity between the new caliph and the general. In any case, it seems that before the messengers could reach Damascus, the 3-day peace the Muslims promised Thomas had passed, and Khalid, alongside 5,000 cavalry, guided by Jonah, started pursuing the Romans. Thomas had around 10,000 people with him, both soldiers and citizens of Damascus, but instead of finding refuge in one of the nearby towns, this group was heading towards Antioch, and that allowed the Arab cavalry to catch up to them to the south of Latakia sometime in late September.
What I find crazy about this is, like, I was just reacting to the Battle of Ankara, and it's just kind of crazy to me how, like, history is kind of like stagnant for a while up until recently. Like, the Battle of Ankara happened in early 1400s, 1402 if I remember correctly. And I'm looking at this. This is like around the year 700-ish, near the ending of 690. Obviously technology kind of improved, like the weaponry and whatnot, but it more or less, like, come on, like 700, wait, no. Like, yeah, 700 years actually, no. 800 years later, it more or less still feels the same. It's just different empires. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I'm the only one that has caught an eye to that.
The details of the engagement, now known as the Battle of Maraj al-Dabaj, are scarce, but according to the Muslim sources, a cavalry detachment of a few hundred caught up and took position to the south of Thomas. The Romans immediately noticed them, deciding that they would be able to defeat this small group with ease. To the surprise of the Romans, as soon as the Arab cavalry and Roman infantry started fighting, another group of Khalid's horsemen appeared to the east.
Wait, what?
The Romans had thousands of refugees in their midst. They still outnumbered the Muslims, and a portion of their infantry formed up to face the new threat.
Alright, Romans, let's see what you got.
However, a half hour after the battle was joined here, a third group of Arab cavalry started charging from the north.
Why no?
The Romans barely got into a defensive formation in time to prevent it from breaking through. Thomas's situation was becoming dangerous, as the route to Damascus was now cut off, but the Romans were still fighting on an equal footing, and the battle raged on 3 sides.
What about the other side?
An hour later, Khalid himself appeared to the west with the largest part of his army and charged the Romans.
The
fact that Thomas managed to get a few units to this front, they were swept aside almost immediately, and the Arab cavalry was now deep inside the Roman formation.
Oh no, the
Thomas
refugees.
was soon killed.
Oh dear.
This continued for some time, but was broken within an hour. Some soldiers and refugees managed to slip away to the north, but the majority of the Romans were either killed or captured. Khalid lost just a few hundred troops.
Wow, I'm not even surprised anymore. At this point,
afterwards, the Arab
If it's Khalid, he's not gonna lose that much troops. Okay.
Headed to Damascus and reached it in early October. Apparently, Abu Ubaidah already received the messenger from the Caliph and informed Khalid of his demotion. According to sources, the latter accepted it without much protest, but it did change the flow of the Caliphate's expansion in the region. Abu Ubaidah was much slower and more deliberate than Khalid. Umar preferred a more hands-on approach to the armies, often issuing orders after every engagement, which slowed down the campaigns due to the distance to Medina. He even placed informers in the army, which made Abu Ubaidah even more careful in his decisions. At the same time, the Muslims received some reinforcements, bringing the total number of their troops to 30,000. However, that wasn't the only change in command made by Umar, which brings us back to Iraq, where Khalid left Muthanna in charge of a 9,000-strong army in 634. For the next few months, Muthanna, whose numbers weren't enough to conquer any more lands, implemented the tactic of raids in order to keep the superior Sassanid forces at bay. The details are lost to time.
Dog. It's crazy to me how the freaking Muslims are expanding, both attacking the Sassanids and attacking the freaking Romans at the same time, and they're like, and they're winning, so no one can't stop them.
But the Sassanids, who were used to fighting in pitched battles, were having a difficult time containing the raids, and one of them even reached Babylon. The best Sassanid commander, Rostam, who basically controlled the court of the 10-year-old Shah Yazdegerd, was reluctant to leave the capital, worried that it might incite another revolt. But Muthanna's raids were too dangerous, so the general decided to take command over the forces in Iraq and marched south, supported by the Sassanid generals Bahman, Jaban and Nasi, and the Armenian noble Jalinus. Even before this multi-pronged counterattack began, Muthanna knew that he needed reinforcements and sent a messenger to the capital. By August, this messenger was in Medina, just in time for the ascension of Umar. The new caliph appointed Abu Ubaid, not to be confused with Abu Ubaidah, to command in Iraq and gave him 6,000 or so troops to reinforce Muthanna. The latter was now informed of the Sassanid counterattack, and when Jaban got close to Al-Hira in late September, the Arab commander abandoned it, retreating to Kafan. By early October, Abu Ubaid joined him, bringing the total strength of the Caliphate's force to more than 15,000, a similar number to that commanded by Jaban, who crossed the Euphrates and was now at Namarik. The details of the battle at Namarik are not clear, but it seems that Jaban suffered a minor defeat and was forced to retreat beyond the river. Abu Ubaid decided to fight the approaching Sassanids.
A lot of these battles, they always have skewed details. If I remember correctly, and I may have remembered this wrong, but I'm pretty sure someone in my comments told me that Muslim sources were often over exaggerated a lot. It was very common, and that a lot of this stuff was just gaslighted to be something more than what it truly was. I don't know if I remember that correctly, but I'm pretty sure I had a comment like that. Forgot who it was from. But it's like every time that I'm reacting to these stuff, man, it's like, oh yeah, we don't know much details of this battle. I'm like, what? Like what am I supposed to say to that? Like,
armies in detail and marched north towards Kaskar, hoping to defeat the smaller army under Nasi and knock him out. Although the Muslims won again, the Persian army managed to retreat mostly intact, and Abu Ubaid, who knew that Jalinus might cut his retreat to Al-Hira, moved his army double time to prevent this from happening. Indeed, the army of the Caliphate reached the city before Jalinus blocked them. The closest Sassanid armies to Al-Hira were those of Jalinus and Bahman. A letter from Rostam ordered them to unite their troops, cross the Euphrates and attack the city. In late October of 634, their united armies, numbering around 20,000, attempted to force the river near Kufa, but Abu Ubaid and his 15,000 were able to halt this crossing. For some time, the armies stood in front of each other screaming insults, until a Sassanid emissary...
Wait. They're screaming insults? They're speaking different languages? Can they even understand each other? War really can do something to you, man.
Obeyed with Bahman's message. Either you cross over to our side and we shall let you, or we shall cross over to your side and you must let us. Although his officers protested it, Abu Ubaid was eager to cross and fight in a pitched battle, so he ordered his army to do that. Seeing this, Bahman repositioned his troops slightly to the north, allowing the Muslims to move across and form up.
Oh! They want the smoke. They want the smoke. They want the smoke!
Previous battles, the Persians had a dozen or so elephants, and they were placed in the vanguard with heavy cavalry between them and the infantry in the second echelon. Abu Ubaid's army crossed the river in 2 hours and started to get into formation, once again with horsemen in front and the footmen in the second line. Bahman continued to wait, and it was Abu Ubaid who gave the order to his soldiers to attack. The Arab cavalry galloped forward, but their horses were scared of the elephants.
I was gonna say, those elephants. You are freaking LARPing Rohan from Lord of the Rings when they charged into those elephants, and they were getting pummeled.
Them for the first time, and the charge stopped before it managed to reach the Sassanid lines. In response, moved his archers to the front and commanded them to shoot at the retreating Arabs. The volleys killed and wounded many, and when the leaders of the army of the Caliphate attempted to move their archers forward to start skirmishing, the whole Arab line became chaotic and disjointed. The Persian commander used that and directed his cavalry and elephants to attack. While the cavalry was mostly stopped, the elephants easily created wedges everywhere they struck. The Arab army was slowly but surely forced back. The presence of the elephants was panicking the horses, so in order to stabilize the front, Abu Ubaid commanded his horsemen to dismount. He led a group of warriors himself, killing a few elephants and their entourages. However, another elephant was sent towards the Arab leader, and soon he was killed by the beast.
Damn!
Many other Muslim leaders were...
Freaking fly. Oh my... Dude, I swear. All of my videos, there's this one freaking fly that keeps flying around me. Jesus, man. So freaking annoying. I don't want to talk and then it flies in my freaking mouth.
Killed, and their army started fleeing in chaos, and the Sassanids started chasing them. Muthanna was one of the last remaining commanders, and he achieved some degree of discipline and organization at the crossing, leading the rearguard and allowing the remainder of the army to retreat. He was badly wounded during the fight, but his actions saved thousands. The Battle of the Bridge was the first battle the Persians won in this war. More than 10,000 Muslims lay dead, while the Sassanid casualties were around 2,000.
Finally! But Khalid, I don't think Khalid was in this battle. Yeah, this wasn't even like a battle that Khalid was in. I mean, it's still great to see because freaking finally the overpowered foe gets defeated. You know what I mean? Like usually I'm always rooting for the underdog, especially in a situation where it's like the like in this case the Muslims are the unstoppable force, and it's like, please someone just stop them, please, just for my enjoyment. I just want to see them be stopped at least freaking wants, man. And finally, it freaking happened.
Over the following weeks, Bahman didn't pursue Muthanna, who withdrew to Ulais and returned to Ctesiphon. Some sources claim that there was another rebellion against Rostam, others that Bahman was sent to deal with the Turkic raiders. The sources are also conflicted on the events that happened in Iraq later in 634 and then in 635, with some chronicles asserting that Muthanna's army deserted and he abandoned all the previous conquests, and others stating that the Sassanids sent a large army under Miran and it was decisively defeated at Buwaib in April of 635. In any case, this lull in action allows us to return to the Levant. The Muslim army was getting used to the new command structure, and using this pause, Heraclius was bringing more forces into the region, by land to Antioch, and, as the Romans had complete naval control, by sea to the various ports. The second group was to be commanded by Theodore Tritherius, the treasurer of the empire, and in December of 634, it started assembling to the west of Pella, which was the perfect place to launch an eastward attack, cutting the line of communications with Arabia. It is not clear how big this army was. Spies had informed Abu Ubaidah about
Nothing is ever cleared.
this threat in December, and in early January of 635, he marched south towards Pella, leaving a corps under Yazid behind. As soon as the small garrison of Pella learned of this, it retreated towards the main army, flooding the river Jordan and creating a swamp-like territory dividing the Byzantine and Arab armies. After occupying Pella, the Arab army commanders decided to move towards Baisan to engage Theodore. They didn't know the terrain of this area well, so soon after, the vanguard led by Khalid got stuck in the mud, and the Muslims were forced to withdraw back to Pella. Theodore waited for a week or so, hoping that his foes would become less vigilant. On the 23rd of January, he marched his troops towards the river with a plan to attack the Muslim camp at night. However, the Muslims had placed scout troops along the river, so as soon as the Romans started crossing, the Arab camp was informed of it and started to form up for battle. We have only limited details on the battle, which...
Of course! It's always limited details, golly, man. Breaking out.
To the Arab sources, raged through the night and most of the next day. The Romans were able to push their counterparts back to the camp using their slightly larger numbers. According to one chronicle, Theodore was wounded in one of the charges, and the resultant loss of morale made the Romans retreat. When they began crossing a marsh, the Arabs used this to their advantage. They attacked, killing thousands. The rest returned to Baisan.
Bro, the Romans are always just getting disrespected at this point.
Army dispersed into various...
Oh my goodness, freaking reminds me of how the Romans are on life support in my Rise of the Ottoman Empire series.
To the west and south, while Theodore returned to Antioch by sea. There was no army to fight back against Abu Ubaidah, so he divided his army into corps to conquer as many cities as possible. Shurabil took Baisan and then Tiberias. Afterwards, Shurabil and Amr bin al-As went south, while Abu Ubaidah and Khalid marched north. By March of 635, the Muslims were in control of the whole region to the south of Beirut, save for Caesarea, which withstood a siege reinforced by Heraclius, and Jerusalem, which had the strongest fortifications. Heraclius probably thought that the Muslims would be busy with the sieges, and he had some time, so he was recruiting in order to counterattack in 636. Simultaneously, an alliance with Yazdegerd was established. Heraclius married his granddaughter to the young Sassanid Shah. It was planned that the Persians would attack Muslim positions from the east.
How much should good car insurance cost you a month? $80? $120?
Skip this
Nope,
part.
probably
My pause isn't working for some reason.
Meanwhile, Abu Ubaidah's 15,000 were moving north, and by November took over the territory between Damascus and Emesa, putting this major city in danger. Heraclius rushed reinforcements, which brought the strength of the garrison commanded by Harbais to 8,000,
Eh,
December, the city was
there's
besieged.
they're still gonna get smoked. I know. Like
Armies
at this
and
point,
Arabs who weren't used to the cold would not be able to sustain the siege for too long.
maybe
At the
maybe
same
they
time,
won't. Let's see.
Edessa was a well-fortified city, with walls 1 mile in diameter, a moat surrounding it, and a citadel within the walls, so the defenders' situation wasn't hopeless. The Muslims weren't strong at the art of siegecraft at that point, and the lack of siege weapons made an assault impossible. So for weeks and then months, the sides did nothing but exchange arrow volleys. By March of 636, winter began to subside, and it was becoming clear that the Arab army was planning to starve the Emessans. Food supplies were getting dangerously low, so Harbiz decided to sally out and kill as many foes as possible, believing that it might end the siege. He left small units to defend the walls and concentrated more than 5,000 near the southern gates. Initially, this sortie was very successful. The Muslims were caught unprepared and were outnumbered 2 to 1, which led to hundreds of casualties and forced them to retreat under Harbiz's pressure. However, Khalid managed to get his cavalry together, arriving to the area of battle shortly after. The numbers were now on the Arab side, and this was enough for the Romans to break off the fight and return to the safety of the walls. The defenders were jubilant, and not at all surprised when the Muslim army gathered to the south and started withdrawing. Harbiz decided that he could score a brilliant victory, and immediately marched out of the city with the same 5,000.
Bro, is this gonna be a freaking? Oh my god, that flies so not. Like I was saying, is this gonna be like a faint withdrawal? I can feel it.
Retreating Muslims a few miles to the south, but as soon as his mounted troops started charging, Abu Ubaida's units turned back and attacked. A few minutes later, the Romans were surrounded from all sides.
Bro, I want this flight. Freaking, oh my god. I knew this was gonna happen. Like, I reacted to so much of these types of battles that at this point, I can just see this stuff from a mile away without even needing to know what happens, man. It's like shaking my head.
Was killed, and only a few hundred of his soldiers escaped. After a short battle, the Arabs returned to the city, and the garrison, which was left leaderless, surrendered.
I don't know why he would do that.
In the north, Emperor Heraclius had been preparing an army to counterattack for some time. Various sources provide numbers of this army ranging from a very modest 30,000 to the fantastical 400,000. It should be noted that the chroniclers who wrote on this war lived at least 1 or 2 generations after the events, so their depictions weren't based on first or even second-hand accounts. We know that at the peak of the Byzantine Sassanid War of 602 to 628, Heraclius was able to raise an army of 70,000 for his attack on the Sassanid Empire, but that army had a considerable Gokturk element. At the same time, the Byzantines had to keep some forces in Italy, the Balkans and the Caucasus in order to check the encroaching Lombards, Slavs, Avars and Khazars.
Yeah.
In our opinion,
bro, you know, why does no one not talk about Slavic tribes? I would love to know how the Slavic tribes influenced the Roman Empire, if they ever did. Like, I'm kind of like learning about the Huns. The Huns, menace to society. Everyone knows about the Germans. The Germans, the ones responsible for making the Western Roman Empire fall apart. But what about the Slavs? I know that the Slavs were a major reason why the German tribes, the Germanic peoples, were migrating so much as well.
The Byzantines outnumbered their opponents at least 2 to 1, but considering the logistical situation in the area of operation, their numbers were below 100,000. Heraclius, who was now in his 60s, suffered from edema, so he wasn't going to lead the army, predominantly made of Greeks, Armenians and Christian Arabs, personally. Instead, the army was divided into 5 columns, commanded by 5 generals. The plan was to engage and surround the Muslim forces around Emesa.
Wait, how
and
far are we in this video?
Damascus, and prevent the troops of the Caliphate operating to the south from reinforcing the northern group.
Let's see what happens here.
The army left Antioch in the middle of June. Unfortunately for the Romans, a few days before their leading column reached Emesa, the Arabs learned about the counterattack, either from their spies or from the prisoners they took while raiding Shaizar. So Abu Ubaidah ordered his corps to fall back. Initially, the idea was to retreat to Damascus to preserve this conquest, but the city was surrounded by open space that would have given an army with superior numbers an advantage, so the Arabs started retreating towards Jabiyah.
Wow, all their gains just gone. Finally, the Romans are cooking.
River Yarmouk to the south, Lake Tiberias to the west, and the desert to the east. Messengers were sent to the southern group with the order to march towards Jabiyah. The Byzantines, who barely missed an opportunity to crush their opponents around Emesa, started chasing the Arabs, slowly coalescing after taking the city. They retook Damascus and continued south, and sometime in the middle of July 636, their vanguard made contact with the Caliphate's rearguard to the north of Jabiyah. The Arab commanders, who initially liked their position, now understood that they might be attacked from the southwest, via the narrow passage between Lake Tiberias and the River Yarmouk. The Byzantine field army could have engaged them from the front, while the garrison of Caesarea might have attacked using the passage. Therefore, Abu Ubaidah left Khalid in command of the rearguard and started repositioning his troops. The latter engaged the Byzantine vanguard, led by the light Christian Arab horsemen, allowing the rest of the army to move unharassed. The Muslims encamped in the eastern part of the plain of Yarmouk. Some distance to the east of them were the lava hills, stretching from north to east of Ezra, and the mountains of Jabal ad-Druz. A few days later, probably in the last days of July, the Roman army entered the plain and built a fortified camp in its western part. With the central portion of the plain left unoccupied, the army started preparing for battle by scouting the enemy positions. The sources mention extensive negotiations which continued for weeks, but the details of the talks are convoluted. In short, they ended in failure and the battle was inevitable. According to some sources, the Caliph's reinforcements, consisting of 5,000 famous Yemeni archers and 1,000 footmen who were veterans of the earliest Muslim campaigns in Arabia, joined the army sometime during this negotiation.
I know I'm like super quiet, but I don't know, how long is this gonna take? I try to keep my videos at least 30 minutes long. You know what? I think I'm gonna end it off here. And then I'm gonna come back. 'Cause this seems like, yeah, this seems like a big battle. Yeah. And we just did a good couple of battles here. Yeah. 3 battles actually. Yeah, so I'm gonna end that off there. Continue that next time. Go check out my other reactions on my channel. If you like what I have to say in my videos, make sure you subscribe. If you've got any suggestions for me, you already know. Go comment it down below, man. And don't forget to like so that my video stays on the YouTube algorithm. Alright. I'm out.